All right, hi there, class. Mr. Pusky here. Hope you're having a good day so far. We're continuing with Chapter 9, which is all about quadratics and parabolas. Today is 9.5, Day 1, and it's called Using the Quadratic Formula. And the name of the essential question is, what is a quadratic formula, and how do we use it to solve quadratic equations? Okay, this is a very important formula, and I'm going to do some singing today. So lucky you, I'm a terrible singer, but you will not forget how the quadratic formula by the time we do this video. So the quadratic formula is a way to find x-intercepts of parabola, to see that the solutions of parabolas are where they cross the x-axis. So if you have like a graph like this, and here's the parabola, right there, those dots are going to be the solutions, okay? And the quadratic formula is nice because we're going to cover factoring in Chapter 10, which you can use a kind of a method to solve them, but this quadratic formula will work if there's solutions or if there's no solutions. So for example, if you have a parabola that's floating above like this, there's actually no real solutions, but there are imaginary solutions, okay? So the solutions are where they cross. If they doesn't cross, there are solutions, they're just imaginary solutions, but we're not going to cover those in Algebra 1, okay? So here's the quadratic formula, okay? The solutions of the quadratic equation y equals ax squared plus bx plus c are... All right, I'm going to sing it a couple times. You can feel free. Don't fast forward, okay? I know it's the tune of Pop Goes the Weasel, and I promise you will, 20 years down the road, if you stick with this, singing it a few times, and I'm going to sing it when we're in class together, it will help you remember the quadratic formula, okay? So here it goes. It's x equals negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. That's the quadratic formula to the tune of Pop Goes the Weasel. Let's do it a couple more times. Ready? X equals negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. One more time for good measure. All right, here we go. Ready? 1, 2, 3. You can sing along if you like. X equals negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. I know, I don't know if I was sharp or flat there, but I know I was bad. But anyways, you get the point. So just practice the singing of this formula. This is hard to remember, right? I actually should have just written it out and say memorize that formula in in a few minutes. And the best way to remember it is the song. The song is going to help you with a mnemonic device that will help you remember it, okay? Because this is a lot to remember. That's a lot of just random symbols and letters, and it's got 4 letters in there. It's got plus or minus, a square root, it's got a fraction, it's got a lot to remember. So I promise you, if you stick with the song, it will help you remember this formula, which will be great, okay? All right, so how do we use the quadratic formula? Well, the first thing we're going to do is we're going to figure out our a, b, and c. So remember, a is what's in front of x squared, so remember, it's ax squared plus bx plus c equals 0. Okay, so what's our a, b, and c here? Well, a is 3. What is b? There's no number in front of the x. When there's no number in front of the x, what is it there? It's going to be a 1 when there's nothing there. And what's our c? c is negative 1. Okay, so we're literally just going to plug into the formula. We're going to solve. So we're going to be x equals negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. Okay, so we're literally just going to plug it in. It's going to be a lot of just calculating here. And when I say negative b is good for the song, but it's actually the opposite of b, okay? Let's think of it like the opposite of b. So if b is 1, what's the opposite of b? That's going to be negative 1 plus or minus the square root of b squared. So when you plug in b squared, we put parentheses around the b. So we're going to do 1 squared like this, minus 4 times a, which is 3, times c, which is negative 1. And that's all over 2 times a, which is 3. Notice the square root covers b squared minus 4ac, that whole thing, and the fraction bar goes underneath the opposite of b, or negative b, okay? The fraction bar goes all the way underneath, and so just make sure you're careful with where the square root goes and where the fraction bar goes. All right, now we're just going to simplify this. We have x equals negative 1 plus or minus. What is 1 squared? Well, that's going to be 1. What is negative 4 times 3 times negative 1? Well, that is positive 12. And then 2 times 3 is 6. So now we have x equals -1 plus or minus square root of, what's 1 plus 12? 13, all over 6. Okay, now this is a little weird, so now we can, we're going to split this up because we have plus and minus going on here. We kind of covered this before in the previous section, so it's going to be -1 plus square root of 13 over 6, and down here we're going to do -1 minus square root of 13 all over 6. You're just going to plug that into your calculator, and it's going to be not equal to, it's going to be approximately, when we do this, we should get approximately, the top one, the positive should be 0.43, and the bottom should be -0.77. Make sure that's the right problem. Looks like it is. Good. Make sure you get these numbers. If you don't, or if you see any mistakes, let me know. But this should be the correct answers. Round to the nearest hundredth, too. So you go to the second decimal place, look to the right of that number. If the number is 5 or more, you raise the score and round up. 4 or less, let it rest, or just keep it where it is. Okay? All right. You know how to use the quadratic formula now. Good for you. Excellent. Why don't you guys try number 2 on your own, see how you do, and we'll go over it in a second. Okay, we have x squared plus 6x minus 7 equals 0. Oh, one more thing I forgot to mention that's very important. To use the quadratic formula, it has to be equal to 0. I'm going to write that up here. I'm going to write it in all caps. Has to be, that's a bad B, equal to 0 with 3 exclamation points. It has to be equal to 0 to use the quadratic formula, okay? That means like ax squared plus bx, so it needs to be ax squared plus bx plus c equals 0, like this, okay? All right, going back to the problem now. So, is it equal to 0 right now? It is, so now we can find our a, b, and c. What's our a? What's in front of the x squared? There's a 1 there. What's in front of the x? There's a 6 for b. What's our c? -7. So we're going to plug into the formula. You can say it with me. X equals -b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. All right, let's plug it in now. I'm sorry if you're getting sick of that, but it's going to keep happening. So sorry dudes and dudettes. So okay, so let's go ahead and do this now. So the opposite of b is -6. Plus or minus the square root of b squared is 6 squared in parentheses minus 4 parentheses times 1, which is a, times c, which is -7, all over 2 times a, which is 1. Let's keep going. So we have x equals -6 plus or minus the square root of 6 squared is 36. -4 times 1 times -7 is positive 28. All over 2 times 1, which is 2. So now we have x equals -6 plus or minus the square root of 36 plus 28 is 64, all over 2. So that's equals -6. What's the square root of 64? This one's a nice one. It's going to come out to 8 all over 2. So we're going to split this up now. So we're going to do -6 plus 8 over 2 equals, and we're going to do -6 minus 8 all over 2 equals. Okay, so what's -6 plus 8? That's 2. What's 2 divided by 2? That's going to be 1. I'll write 2 over 2 actually, so I don't skip steps. And what's -6 minus 8? -14. What's -14 divided by 2? -7. So these are our answers right here. And there we go. All right, we got a couple more examples to go through here. Okay, we have 2x squared plus 6x equals 9. It says first rewrite the equation in standard form. Why? Why is it not in standard form right now? Sorry. It is not in standard form right now because it's not equal to 0. So we need to make it equal to 0. So how do I make it equal to 0? What am I going to do with this 9 over here? I'm going to subtract 9 from both sides. Does 9 combine with 2x squared or 6x? It doesn't. Those are not like terms. We're literally just going to write 2x squared plus 6x minus 9 equals 0. Okay, now it's equal to 0, so now we can do our a, b, and c, which is a is 2, b is 6, c is -9. And we're going to plug into the formula. Sing it with me. X equals negative b plus or minus the square root b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. See if you can solve this one on your own. See how you do. Go ahead. All right, let's do it. X equals the opposite of b. Opposite of 6 is negative 6. Square root of b squared is 6 squared. Minus 4 times a, which is 2, times c, which is negative 9. All over 2 times a, which is 2. So we got negative 6 plus or minus the square root of 6 squared is 36. Negative 4 times 2 times negative 9 is positive 72. All over 2 times 2, which equals 4. Oops, I wrote 2. I'm going to go back over here. So now it's going to be x equals negative 6 plus or minus the square root of 36 plus 72 is 108. All over 4. We're going to split this up. So we're going to do negative 6 plus square root of 108 all over 4. And we're going to do negative 6 minus square root of 108 all over 4. Approximately, plug that into your calculator, you should get approximately 1.10 and negative 4.10. All right, if you didn't get those numbers, check your work, see how you did. Okie dokie. We're going to skip the next example. So let's talk about, I kind of talked about this earlier in the video. In the video, we talked about the x-intercepts of a graph is where the graph crosses the x-axis. And that's going to happen when y equals 0. So we're going to skip this example here. You can check the notes if you want to do it. I'm going to skip it for now because it's basically just doing what we were doing before, but basically you set 0 equal to the... So basically it's another quadratic formula problem. You set this equal to 0, and then you solve, okay, by using quadratic formula. We already got that down. I think we got a lot of practice. So we're going to skip to the next example, which is more important because it has a weird result, which we're going to talk about. Okay, so we have this one, y equals x squared minus 5x plus 11. So to use quadratic formula, y needs to be equal to 0. So we set it equal to 0. We do x squared minus 5x plus 11. Okay, so there's something in that box on the right we'll come back to in a little bit here, okay? What's our a, b, and c? 1, negative 5, and 11. Okay, we're going to plug into that quadratic formula. Here we go. X equals negative b plus or minus the square root b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. All right, let's plug it in. X equals opposite of b. B is negative 5, so the opposite of b is going to be positive 5. Square root of b squared. Now this is where we got to be careful, okay? It's negative 5, so put negative 5 in parentheses squared like this, okay? Because if you just do negative 5 squared, that equals negative 25, which is not correct, okay? It is negative 5 times negative 5, which is positive 25, all right? Just be careful with that. A is going to be 1, C is going to be 11, all over 2 times A, which is 1. Let's keep going. So we have 5 plus or minus the square root of negative 5 squared, like I talked about, is negative 5 times negative 5, which is positive 25. Negative 4 times 1 times 11 is negative 44. Over 2 times 1, which is 2. Now we have x equals 5 plus or minus the square root. Uh-oh, I have a problem here. What's 25 minus 44? That's negative 19. What did I say about square rooting negative numbers? Can we do that or no? We cannot. So, what this means is we have no real solutions because we have a negative under a square root. Okay? So there's no real solutions because there's a negative under square root, which means the graph, if it doesn't have a solution, it doesn't cross the x-axis. Okay? Does not cross the x-axis. Okay? All right, you guys should be good to go with the quadratic formula, and just be prepared. I'm going to sing it more in class too, so I apologize for being annoying, but I'm not sorry for helping you remember a very important formula. So have a great day, and we will talk soon.